Hello everyone, my name is Hugo and welcome back to my channel. New sort of angle. I think the lighting is a bit bright, but yeah, again, I don't know how to fix my lighting here. Anyway, what are we going to do today? Today will be sort of... Hello? So what are we going to do today? Today will be a sort of video that's a continuation of my very first video ever. So if there's anyone still out there that watched that very first one and is still watching, thank you very, very much. Yeah, you should definitely not go watch that one because I couldn't speak back then. But anyway, my very first video ever was like 5 books to read in the summer outside in the park or something. Now, I was actually planning on doing that every season, but then I completely forgot about the fall and winter. So here we are, spring, and I thought maybe 5 books to read by the window or outside if the weather allows it, or even inside, I don't care. I need a title that's similar, okay? I will have 1 non-fiction and 4 fiction. I'll start with a non-fiction. I haven't finished this yet, so I can't really judge like a lot yet. But it's Life 3.0 by Max Tegmark. What is this about? It's about AI and the future of AI. And like the very first chapter is not really a simulation, but what it could be in like a few decades maybe. So he like explains how an AI can work, and he explains once you have a certain level of artificial intelligence, they can learn themselves and improve themselves so that humans don't actually have to do that anymore. And the basic idea is like, once you make an artificial intelligence that is smarter than humans and therefore can make better inventions than humans, that will be the last invention we will ever have to make. Just we would hope that we can keep that in control. So yeah, it's very interesting what would actually be possible with AI, and then he goes into the negative things, the positive things, where it could be good for, where it could be bad for, where we need to watch out for, things like that. I don't know, I've been reading this, we had some nice weather, it's already gone now. It's back to almost freezing. We had some nice weather and I sat outside and read this book. Then something I read recently, A Man Called Ove. I did a whole review on this, so I won't get into it too deeply. But this is basically about an old man who lives his life, and you see where he thinks about and what he thinks about, what his thoughts are on certain things. He's a grumpy old man. And yeah, you just follow him and what his day looks like. And I'm not really getting into it, but yeah, I think this is because it's like heartwarming, it's very bittersweet. I think it's just ideal to read right about now. But like I said, there's a full review, I'll leave a link somewhere and you can watch that one. Then it's not really fiction, but kind of. Well, no, it's actually really fiction. It's Norse mythology, because mythology is fiction, people. Yeah, this is about Norse mythology, as the title would suggest. And this was my very first Neil Gaiman book. And now I have already 6 Neil Gaiman books waiting on my shelf. And read 2 more, by the way. So yeah, you can tell I really like his writing style. So what is this about? This is literally just stories of Norse mythology, retold, kind of. I never read the original ones, which I plan to do now. But you follow the figures like Thor, Odin, Loki, and so on. You can see the story of how Mjolnir, the hammer, was made. You can see how Odin got his spear, things like that. But yeah, it's very well written and just very light to read. It's basically short stories, but it's all connected too. But like one chapter will end and then we're like 45 years into the future. 45 later, oh fucking hell. And we're like 45 years later. You can read the stories separate but I would just read them from start to finish, which would make the most sense, I think. I really recommend this book to read by your window in the sunshine. Then I have two chunks of books. I'll start with the longer one. This is if you have spring break or something. In Belgium we're in spring break right now. So I mean it with like with spring break, that you would have a lot of extra time on your hand.
You want him to do you so much you could do anything?
And of course I had to recommend it in some video. I had to recommend it with some video. It's It by Stephen King. What is it about? We follow a group of children and they live in Derry, which is like a town, and shit happens in that town. Let me just read the very first paragraph and let me know if that doesn't just convince you. The terror, which would not end for another 28 years if it ever did end, began so far as I know or can tell with a boat made from a sheet of newspaper floating down a gutter swollen with rain. Doesn't that just draw you in immediately? This book, I would say, some trigger warning maybe. It gets very cool and it's definitely horror. So maybe it's not for everyone. Also, it's massive. It's like around 1200 pages and the pages are very long too. See? So it's really long one. However, I think it's very much worth it, and everyone should read it, especially if you like Stephen King, especially if you like thriller or horror or suspense novels, things like that. And yeah, I just really recommend going into this without really knowing anything about it. That's the best way to go into it. Like I did, I never watched any movie or like the older ones or newer ones. I never watched like spoiler-filled reviews or something like that. I didn't look into it too much. Anyway, yeah, really recommend it. That was maybe really vague, but yeah, I would just recommend going into it. Then I'm holding the wrong one. This is Well of Attention, but I mean Final Empire. If you haven't read that, if you have read that, then you can read this one. Why am I holding this one? Because Final Empire is still with a friend of mine. It's been there for 8 months now. I'm losing my shit. I want it back. I asked for it and she said, oh my god, no, I forgot about it. Can I still read? And I was like, fine. That was 2 months ago. Okay, I want it back. Anyway, Final Empire is a fantasy novel written by Brandon Sanderson, and it's about people with elementic powers. So if they consume a certain metal, they can have a certain power. It goes from influencing the emotions, to detecting people with powers, to hiding people with powers, to pushing metals, pulling metals, getting extra strength, those kind of things. I could make a whole video on the magic system of Mistborn. However, there are tons of videos on it and I would just recommend any of those other videos. So what's the plot then about? So there is this evil Lord Ruler who is immortal or considered immortal, and he's a tyrant. That's the word, right? Tyrant. And they try, and there's a group with their leader Kelsier, who is Mistborn. So Mistborn, they have like all the powers. So their leader is Kelsier, and this whole group tries to overthrow the Lord Ruler, and with it the Final Empire, and then start a new, more fair world. I haven't read the third one yet. I'm gonna read that this month, but I really recommend it because especially the first one, I mean, especially now because the sun is shining, and I don't know, I always got the feeling that in Final Empire the sun was shining, except at night with the mist. But I always had this, I don't know, I had this warm feeling of the world, right? So that's why I would recommend the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. It's pretty long too, but it's decent. It's decent. So, those were 5 books that I would recommend reading this spring or whenever you feel like it. It's just 5. It's basically just 5 random recommendations, right? Yeah, I think that will be it. If you liked any of these books or you would add some more to this list, you can leave a comment on which books you would add, or you can just like the video and support my channel with that. You can also subscribe and also support my channel with that. There are so many ways to do that. You can follow me on Instagram, you can follow me on Twitter, you can follow me, that's about it I think. And yeah, you can add me on Goodreads. Is that self-promo enough? I think so. Yeah, that will be all. I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye.